Hello everybody, this is Jackson from TSW and we are here today with a deck tech. Today we are going to be talking about my favorite legion, Undead, and of the Undead legions we have Rosaline, the Vampire Queen of Castle Crimson. So this deck is an aggro deck. We are trying to kill before turn 3 ideally, but when it comes to that third turn we have a lot of really accessible ways to kill people from our left side. And to start with our left side, we have Rosaline herself, the Vampire Queen. She's a DCM 75 Warlord. Her special action, Call Upon the Coven, has a cooldown 2 and Bloodborne 4. She gets to conscript up to 2 warriors from your hand or discard pile. And then you bestow +2 attack to all vampire undead warriors on your side of the field, and they gain fears. Notably, it doesn't say that you can only revive vampire warriors or conscript from hand, so you can actually get some other guys out that we'll be mentioning in our deck, or if you want to splash them in, you can later. Magical attack, Fine Dining. So we conjure 2 Blood Offering tokens on our opponent's side of the field, and then if we do, we will heal X, where X is the number of tokens on the other person's field. Notably, again, it doesn't say Blood Offering tokens, so into certain decks that are very token heavy, this could just say heal 5 if you don't conjure anything. And then her physical attack, Vampire's Kiss, does deal 2 damage, a little smooch, a little 2 damage. To our Veil of Hunger, love the art, and this is the first iteration of our veils where they're not double-sided, but all just one side. So the veil reads as, once you've pierced your veil, you revive up to 2 vampires from your discard pile, and then you conjure up to 2 Blood Offering tokens. Sweet and simple. Our synergy is the Blood-Soaked Archive. This is locked to Rosaline, and this is the one I would suggest you to play. But I would consider, if you don't have this one somehow, you could play other ones like the Peace Monument. And then the effect says, search your deck for 1 Crimson Vial Undead card, and if you send it to your discard pile, and if you do, you activate the effect of it without paying its Bloodborne or Consume costs. Then for the remainder of the turn, all Vampire Undead Warriors that enter play under your side of the field gain Wisdom. So a little extra card draw if you haven't found your win condition yet, or it lets you find one of your vials that helped you end the game. And then Eleanor, the Forbidden Lover. She's the one I would almost recommend to play every single time, because there's so many cards that are locked to her in this deck that you really want to play. But if you don't own her, you could in theory pick another Guardian. This is the one I would play though. So 60 AP. At the start of the game, you conjure up to 3 Blood Offering tokens on your opponent's side of the field. And the Guardian ability is, if this Warlord uses its special action, you can reduce the DCM of your Warlord by X, where X is half of the total attack of all Vampire Warriors on your side of the field, rounded down. Oh, you can also use Stick and Bones, though, if you don't really want to use this. It's very strong effect, the Mulligan, after Mulligan and the Guardian ability, but Stick and Bones, if you don't want to lose Doomfires, which are notably one of the best undead cards that you have access to, and you don't want to use a Renowned Guardian as your option, you can use Stick and Bones as a new alternative from Wintertide Wanderers, because he's a rare Undead Guardian. So we'll get into now the warriors of this deck. So going into the warrior lineup, we are going to start with the ones I say you need to play at playsets. So Earl, or Demetrius, the Vampire Earl of Traders, he is Attack 1 and Vampiric 1. So Vampiric is going to be a keyword we'll see across most of the warriors in our deck. Vampiric says, after this warrior deals damage to another warrior by battle, it gains attack equal to the Vampiric number listed. And then we go to the Perish effect of this, which references Vampiric. So search your deck for 1 Vampire Undead Warrior and conscript it to your side of the field. It gets Vampiric 1. And if you don't know, in the rulebooks, any keywords that reference a number can be modified and increased by other numbers. So if we have a warrior that's conscripted from Earl's effect, so it would be Vampiric 1, and then it would be now Vampiric 2, because we had 1 + 1 to 2. Just then, so the future ones make more sense. So Earl's great because he extends into all our other warriors, like for example, I'm going to call him, I call him Bald Guy all the time, but his name is Grimke, the Accused Vampire. I'm going to always refer to them by my nicknames going forward. So Bald Guy, he's Attack 1 and Vampiric 1, and his Perish says, shuffle 1 Crimson Undead card from your discard pile into your deck, and if you do, draw a card. It's just good to substitute until you get to that third turn, because you don't actually have a lot of card draw. You do a lot of searching, though, in the deck. So you kind of need to see his Perish a few times. Next, our big beater, or we finally moved away from having vanilla attack warriors. So now our 5 attack has Vampiric 1. Ooh, spicy. And the best part about him, he's actually one of the only warriors we will have in the deck that has Crimson in the name. So if we have any search effects that say Crimson, we can actually search him or the next one that we play at 2 copies. That is not a vampire, just to make sure. He does not synergize with a lot of our other cards, but he does have Retrieve, and he is Crimson, so he can be searched. So Sir Grim Crimson, the Undead Prince, has Retrieve. Ignore his Perish. Yeah, so also with the SRL, he's been recently changed to 2 copies, so you kind of need to only play him at 2, or you could play 1 copy in the past. I would suggest even playing 3 copies of him if you could, but now you can't because he's got 2 copies. His Perish, if you do include 1 copy of Grimace the Grim Princess, when he perishes, you can target 1 Grim Princess in your discard pile and pay 1 life and you revive her to your side of the field. I would not suggest playing it. If you need to fill out warrior numbers, you could. And the last warrior I play as one of is Daywalker, the Vampire Striker Sanguina. So he's Vampiric 1, and then his Perish says target up to 1 undead warrior, or vampire undead warrior on your side of the field. Then if you do, the targeted warrior can attack an additional time this turn. I find at most I will destroy him with my own windmill to give one of my warriors that are already pretty large an extra attack. Otherwise, he is just an extra vampire warrior to fill out our count, because a lot of our cards require us to revive or conscript things to do their additional effects. So sitting at 10 vampire warriors is a good number. Going on to our unifieds, this deck is primarily unified because most aggro decks tend to be more engine than they are like payoff or interactive pieces. So to start with some of our payoff, we are going to be playing 3 of Blood Vial or Crimson Vial type beta. This one's locked to Rosaline, so it's 5 Bloodborne, 5 Consume. For the remainder of the turn, each time a vampire undead warrior on your side of the field destroys another warrior on the field, you draw 1 card. And to note, it doesn't say currently on your field. So this is a lasting effect for the turn, and it can be very powerful, and because it's not limited to once per turn, it can stack. So you can play 3 betas if you really wanted to, and then each undead warrior can destroy 1 warrior in play, and you can draw multiple cards. And all the blood vials read this final text at the bottom. If this card is in your discard pile during the end phase of your opponent's turn, you deal 1 damage and heal 1 DCM. So with multiple vials, you start draining your opponent for more life. But we will only be playing 4 blood vials total in this list, but you could play more if you wanted to get more of those discard synergies. Next, we are playing 3 Grim Wish for more life. This card is just generically good in Undead as a whole. It sends 2 from your deck to discard for cost, and the resolution is you draw a card and you heal 3. And then if this is sent from deck to discard, you could target a 1 Grim Undead Warrior on your side of the field. Then if you do, destroy it and heal 6. Now the one downside is you only are running 2 Grim Warriors, so if you wanted to increase your Grim count just to get more benefit from this effect, but 9 times out of 10, this card is going to cantrip itself. You're going to put some cards in your discard pile, and you're going to go up in cards in hand. Next, this is our main engine to search for cards, is the Vampire Lineage of the Castle Crimson. This is also Warlord locked to Rosaline. You spend 3 Bloodborne, and then you'll send the top X, where X is the number of number of tokens on your opponent's side of the field. And then for resolution, you will search for any Crimson Undead card and add it to your hand. If this card is sent from deck to discard, you can target a Vampire Warrior in your discard pile. Then if you do, you add that warrior to your hand, and each effect is once per turn. Usually the best playline is you go Lineage into Field into another effect that will trigger when sent from deck to discard, or you can go Crimson Field, Lineage into a Coffin and then search a warrior, draw a card. But this generally extends into other playlines, and it's usually a good opener to find in your 6. Next, speaking of a card I just mentioned a second ago, Crimson Coffin. Crimson Coffin is one of the few cards that is locked to Eleanor, which is why I also suggest playing it. But Crimson Coffin says, search your deck for a Vampire Undead Warrior, send it to your discard pile, draw a card. And if it's in your discard pile, you can pay 4 Bloodborne and eradicate the card, and you target a vampire on your side of the field for cost. Then if you do, it cannot be removed by the field by opposing players' card effects until the start of your next turn. So you pick your biggest warrior, you say it's not leaving the zone ever, for at least that turn, and each effect is once per turn. But by having 3 of these, and you can readily send it to the discard pile, you can consistently search a dude, draw a card, and it stays on board. It is something you can play 2 to 3 copies. I think as an intro level, play 3 because you'll always see it, and it just draws cards. And drawing cards good. Next, another undead staple. If you don't have these, I would definitely try and pick these up if you can. The Windmill of Corpses. So this is an Act Unified card. It says when this is first activated, you destroy one undead warrior on your side of the field for cost. Then if you do, you send the top 2 from deck to discard. And then once per turn, you destroy a undead warrior on your side of the field. And if you do, you revive one in your discard pile with a different name. And if this is sent from deck to discard, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the discard pile, and then you can add this card back to your hand. You can only control one face-up windmill. And this is kind of going back to that striker I was mentioning earlier. So have you a hard time killing your guys because they're going to actually be quite large. So having a windmill is a good way to destroy your warrior to give someone an additional attack, but then also let you kind of do some fun little play lines where you can swing with the striker, do the once per turn of windmill, bring back a different guy, and then use the perish to give your big 5 attacks to swing again. Next, this is the reason why our guys are going to be so huge, is this card called Crimson Fields. I'm so glad this card is so good now. So Crimson Fields is a unified act card that says static, you bestow 1 to all your undead warriors, just whatever, right? The next static says you bestow 2x, where x is the number of vampire warriors that are face up on your side of the field. And then once per turn, you can send a Crimson or Vampire card from your deck to discard, and if you do, draw a card. You can only have 1 Crimson Field in play at a time, but you could play 2 to 3 copies of this. You have to be playing 1 at minimum. But 1 of this, plus a full board of Vampires, you get plus 11. Pretty good. Then next, we have our Crimson Bond. This is kind of a double up, and again, this is another card that's locked to Eleanor. So again, another reason to want to play her. And this card does 2 very good things with the deck. First, the on-play effect is 5 Bloodborne, 5 Consume. You target up to 2 vampire warriors with different names in your discard pile. Then if you do, you revive the targeted warriors to your side of the field. And then when sent from deck to discard by the effect of a Crimson Undead card, Crimson Unified? No, Crimson Undead card, doesn't matter. And then you can target up to 1 face-up Unified and 1 face-up Fortified your opponent controls and then destroy them. So that's what I was saying earlier, the fun little play lines. You can go Lineage into Field, into Bond, or Lineage into Coffin, send Warrior, draw a card. A lot of these engines will send and not a lot of variance, which is really nice. So if you kind of want to move away from the other undead decks that are either really interactive or like based off of, oh, I have to discard these certain cards from deck, you don't really have that here. A lot of it's pretty consistent. And then we're going to go into, we have very few bounty cards in this deck. We're playing 2 Dismantle because we're an aggro deck. You could play 3. I play 2, and then the 1 usually goes in my side deck, but we're not talking about side decks here. And then the Renown of Choice. Now, you can play this card, or you can play Sisters. Sisters is a good Renown because, again, Coffin, Lineage, Fields are all going to be able to send Sisters to the discard pile where you can revive her pretty easily because you're undead, and that's what undead does. But I play Coven because Coven reads as it's a unified act. All vampires that enter play on your side of the... Actually, it doesn't even say on your side of the field. Static, all vampire undead warriors that enter play gain recover 2. So it unfortunately is symmetrical. If you're playing Coven and your opponent is not, you let your opponent heal life. But the other static says, all vampire undead warriors on your side of the field cannot be removed by keyword abilities. So very good. Gust is not a problem anymore. Shockwave, Tremor, all these things are fake. Incinerate doesn't even work. And then once per turn, you can search your deck for a Crimson Undead card and send it to the discard pile. And if you do, conscript 1 vampire from your hand into play. So again, all these engine pieces search for each other. So if you have one, you more or less have the other ones, assuming you have a Prince in hand, which is really nice. And then into a couple other cards. Undead Staple, Across the River Strix. So target 1 in your discard on an undead card in your discard pile for cost. Then if you do, you place that card on the bottom of your deck. Then you revive a undead warrior. I'm not going to read the when sent from deck to discard pile. You'll never activate that effect. Just to be honest. And this is a card. This is our 4th Blood Vial. Again, this one's Rosaline locked. It says 12 Bloodborne, so it's a steep cost, but with your synergy, costs nothing. All vampires in your side of the field at the moment gain Condemn. That's all it does. Give Condemn. If you have a board full of dudes on the other side, you just swing 5, deal 25. Pretty good. Spores. I'm going to call this an undead staple, even though it's technically a putrid card. When first activated, you send the top 3 of your opponent's deck, up to 3 from your opponent's deck, to the discard pile. Static. At the end of each player's turn, you deal 1 damage for all warriors in face-up zones, minus like the warrior slots. So discard an erad. And then the eradication effect doesn't matter because we're not playing putrid. And then we play 1 Seal of Fate because we're an aggro deck and we want more ways of interacting when possible. So 3 total negates, but you could go higher if you really wanted to. I think with how much card draw you have, you don't need to. And finally into our fortified suite. And because we're an aggro deck, it's going to be pretty light for fortifieds, but most of what we're going to be doing is destroying or blowing up warriors. So for our first playset, we're going to use is Eleanor's Crimson Rebuke. Believe it or not, it's locked to Eleanor. Another reason to play her over Stick and Bones or other Guardians, but I understand if you don't have Eleanor. This says consume 10. You're going to target a face-up card on the opponent's side of the field. Then if you do, you're going to destroy X card, you destroy that card, and then you deal X damage to their warlord equal to the number of warriors that have left the field this turn. So at a bottom line, you deal 1 damage to the opponent and destroy a warrior, but if they've been swinging a lot and a lot of things have died, you could in theory do a cheeky bunch of damage to the Mortis player if they've been looping their warriors, or the ethereal player if they've been sacrificing all their tokens. And if this is in your discard pile except the Turn of Ascent there, you can eradicate to conjure up to 2 blood offering tokens, which is sneaky good when you can start your opponent with 3 blood offering tokens and then put another 2. You could just lock out their warrior zones, which I suggest all vampire players to do until you want to hurt them. Speaking of locking out zones, you can briefly open up a zone for your opponent with Concierge or Crimson Concierge. So it's Bloodborne 5, target a warrior on their side of the field for cost. Then you do is send that card to the discard pile and you conjure a blood offering token. So you can replace their good warrior with a bad warrior. And then if this is sent from deck to discard, you can consume 5 to revive a undead vampire warrior in your discard pile. So the nice thing about this too, because if you're on your turn and you use your fields to send it to the discard pile, you can revive a card and your opponent 9 times out of 10 can't negate it because it's a fortified card. Next, Undead Stables, Doomfire. The reason why we have to play an Undead Guardian is this card. We want to play max copies that we can based on the SRL list, and because it has not been changed, we will play 3 copies. It's 20 consume to use it in play. The in-play effect says negate the activation of a unified card and eradicate face down. If this is in your discard pile except the turn it was sent there, you can pay 10 consume and negate the activation of a unified card and destroy it. So good in play and in bin because even though we're a 60 AP Guardian, we might feel like we chew through a lot through some of our interactive pieces. With the next card I'm going to show you, AP does not exist. AP is free. AP here is Gaze of the Crimson Court. So Fortified Act is locked to Eleanor. Again, another reason to play Eleanor. Static, when when a warrior is conscripted or revived on the opposing side of the field, they must declare an attack immediately. That's sometimes tricky for causing your opponents to do suboptimal playlines. But the reason why we play the card is static. Each time you destroy a blood offering token by battle, you replenish 5 AP. And once per turn, you can consume 10 and target 1 face-up card on your opponent's side of the field. Then if you do, you send the target card to the discard pile. Angel players are afraid of things being sent, so you have so many ways of sending things to the discard pile. You don't have to worry about your Imperiums, Helios, and Lunas. Those are fake cards. Finally, our last Crimson card in the deck that we'll be playing is Crimson Carnage. This is our quote-unquote hand trap card. So you can activate this card from your hand into an empty fortified zone only if there's 3 opposing warriors that entered the play this turn, but otherwise it's 5 Bloodborne and 5 Consume. You can conscript up to 2 vampires from your hand, and if you do, you get to give them Carnage. And Carnage reads as, warriors that enter play can target a warrior in the field. Then if you do, you deal 3 damage to that warrior and all adjacent warriors. Another fun way to trigger your parishes if you need to, where you could conscript a bald guy and another bald guy, and then you could optimally choose the Carnage targets to where you kill both of them and then you shuffle them back, or shuffle back other Crimson cards draw 2. But it's just a good piece of removal and also puts out 2 guys. And the final card we're playing is Mists. I think it's an LRAW staple. I think you kind of have to play a Mists in every deck if you can. If you don't know what this card does, the most recent version of this card says you target up to 3 cards in a player's eradication zone, and then you will shuffle those cards back into your opponent's deck. And then you will not take damage from opposing players' card effects or by battle until the start of your next turn. This is an older version, unfortunately, so this is not up to date, but don't use this one as a reference point. Use the one from the Mariana Structure deck that you should buy 2 to 3 copies of, so you have all of the cards you need to play that deck. So, to discuss briefly about some of our good and bad matchups and the reason to play this deck. So, to start with our good matchups, any Angel deck kind of gets shit on because sending as your form of interaction versus destroy is very good. It kind of circumvents the holy counters. Next, Mortis, very warrior-focused deck. Doesn't have a lot of ways of removing its own warriors, so if you fill out their zones with the blood tokens, it's very difficult. and Condemn good, believe it or not. And then Frost Dwarf is kind of the same issue as Mortis. You really need to keep warriors in play. So if the vampire player says, no, you have a bunch of blood offering tokens, you don't get to really do a lot. Next, into bad matchups, these are all decks that can just readily blow up anything in play. So demons, we have Duxbox, even sometimes like iterations of the War-Torn Orcs. And then most Mythical Beast decks have just removal to remove anything. So your onboards are going to get removed. The warriors you're trying to stick on their side of the field are going to get removed. So the benefit of this deck is you're more onboard heavy than other undead decks, in my opinion. And the biggest and strongest thing about this deck are these tokens. These tokens are cracked. Giving your opponent useless warriors is pretty good, believe it or not. So if you can give them 5 useless warriors, they don't get any good warriors. So just to kind of show what a good opener would look like, for the purposes of this, we have stacked the top 6, what I would think would be an optimal opener. And then from there, we're going to go spin our wheels and see what it would look like. So I like these openers because this deck, we're going to play a lot of engine, and a lot of it is good opener. These are great cards to start with, and these are going to be cards that are going to help us get to the payoffs or just have some interaction. So to always start, this is under the assumption my opponent has 3 Blood Offering tokens from the After Mulligan ability of our Guardian. So I always start with Lineage, because Lineage says I'm going to send the top X to my discard pile, where X is the number of tokens they have. So I'm going to send 3 in this case. That's cool. I got some good targets I'm going to potentially use. Like if my opponent was going first, let's say, and had some things set, I could use this to blow up some cards. I also now have a Coven, which is my Renown I will want if I find a retrieve target later on. But because I'm now resolving my card, I'm going to go find a Crimson card, and in this case, it's going to be Coffin. Because if I have a Windmill, I'm going to be able to revive the thing I send to the discard pile with having access to Earl and Windmill. We get a lot more guys than we thought. So here's my cut for myself, just because I'm a sportsman-like player. Coffin to hand, Lineage to bin. I will then play my Coffin. I'm going to search for a Vampire Warrior and put it to the discard pile. You might think, oh, well, I'm going to find the 5 attack guy and put him to the discard pile. Wrong. We are going to find Bald Guy, because we want to draw more cards, and unfortunately this deck doesn't have any Plunder or Wisdom until the 3rd turn. So Bald Guy, we want to trigger his Paris as much as possible if able, and him now being in the discard pile means that we can Windmill him, which we want to do. So Bald Guy in the discard pile, and then resolving the card, we will draw. What did we draw? We drew a Concierge, more interaction, yippee. So we're going to conscript for turn. He's going to hang out here for a second. We're going to, because we played a little bit of Bloodborne already, we're going to just send 2 for cost. No triggered effects. Unfortunate to see our 1 of Mists gone, but we will draw a card. Great, another Lineage for next turn. And then we are going to rip our Windmill of Corpses. Earl's going to die for costs, so we will actually resolve his Parish first before we send the 2 cards. So Earl is going to go find another Earl. You could argue that you find another Bald Guy if you want another draw, but I like having the Earl loop, because what's going to happen is that once we do our Windmill of Corpses, we're going to end our turn with 2 warriors in play versus 1. So we'll do that, then we'll send 2. That sucks. That also sucks. So that does sometimes happen playing an undead deck. You'll just lose all your bounty cards, but you can't win them all. So we're gonna go into our Crimson Fields, doing its once per turn. We are gonna send a card to our discard pile, and then we are going to. So I'm thinking right now, because we have a lot of really good cards in our discard pile, we're actually going to send the Prince, because he is a Crimson card, not a Vampire card. So we're going to send him to the discard pile, draw a card, and if we're good enough, maybe we just draw a Bond. Because Bond lets us revive up to 2 guys, but we might not be good enough. I'm not always a guy who wants it enough. That's not it. But you know what? The fact that the way we played our turnout, we're going to be able to set down 3 interactive pieces. We don't have any Doomfires in bin yet, but there's a good chance that we might get there. So we're going to do once per turn. Once per turn here is going to, just to shortcut it, get this guy, and we're going to go find another Earl in deck, and I'm just going to put the Earl. The reason why we're shortcutting is because this is going to destroy Earl, and then Earl this is going to revive Prince. And this, when he dies, is going to find another copy of Earl, because they can find any guy that is a vampire, and it just gives a vampiric 1 and conscript it from deck. But the reason why I want to fill my discard pile as much as possible, it gives me more revive targets for later. And if I had happened to draw into the spores, which I'm still trying to dig for at this point, I now get access to more damage earlier on in more increments. So my retrieve target, because lineage is a once per turn, we can't do lineage. We've already done coffin, so you could grab the coven, and then you could send a crimson thing and then protect our board. But I'm honestly, at this moment, a little bit more interested in sending more cards to my discard pile. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to play it right away. I'm going to send the top 2. Oh, perfect. More cards to mill. And another one of these in our discard pile. We'll draw our card. Actually, I guess this triggers first because it's for cost. Send. Draw our card. Well, actually, this comes back to hand first. Then we draw our card from Wish. And would you look at that? We are going to set 4 fortified on our first turn. We're presenting a 2 board. And right now, they're getting +3, so they're deceptively large as well. They're 4 attacks. And you know what? For our first turn, we got about, putting a little comparison here, about half our deck into our discard pile. So next turn, we're going to have a lot of resources to work with. And because we already have a prince, this windmill is going to do work. And if our opponent removes this, now they know that we have this contingency of a second windmill. So they're not going to likely destroy this. Otherwise, we're just getting extra value. And having the second lineage in hand means that we're going to find anything that gets removed. Oh, they lost our fields. We're going to go find a second copy of fields. We're going to go find our coffin. Or if we did want to really maintain this board space, we could activate the 1 coffin and bin to protect our Earl. But we want him to die, so we're going to keep him around. And that is what a good opener would look like. Ideally, you want to get, in my opinion, usually undead decks, about 1/3 to half of your deck in your discard pile, more resources. And we're going to want a decent amount of interaction because going first, Doomfires are so strong. But in this case, we are going to try and fill up our opponent's board with these rebukes. And we also have a Concierge and Gaze, so we can use Gaze to take out any strong face-ups, and Concierge will get rid of any warriors that they're going to try and stick and play. So going into the next segment, because originally the deck we had shown was a pleb deck, and now I'm going to show you the cards I would suggest you to put into the deck for the highest level of competition in our constructed format. To start, this is your secondary renown option you could have chose, which is the Vampire Sisters Crimson. They're a 1-attack warrior with Allegiance Rosaline, so you have to play Rosaline to play these. And then they have Vampiric 3, Fierce, and Encore. Short and simple, just 3 evergreen keywords. So they get big, they're hard to remove and play, and there are multiple ways of attacking, which is really nice. Next is our Fractured Rosaline. She is not a vampire, so she won't synergize with her other cards, and she's not Crimson. However, if you do happen to find her in a face-up zone, you can use the Fracture keyword to conscript her for 10 life. And then Invite lets you search your deck for any 2 different named warriors with different names, and you conscript them to your side of the field. And she has Vampiric 4. Next, we have our 5th anniversary. You don't have to play the 5th anniversary Teddy Doom, but we have one here just for example. So Vampire Teddy Doom is a Wisdom Warrior with Vampiric 1. He's also Attack 3. He has Encore, similar to the sister. So again, your top end gets a lot more attacks per warrior, which is really helpful for your aggressiveness. And then he has Cuddle, everyone's favorite keyword. You have to have a baby in play. And you can activate this in the discard pile by paying 8. Then you revive him onto your side of the field, adjacent to the baby. Next, the baby. Let's go. I'm just kidding. I always think of the rapper whenever I say this card. So the baby is a 1-attack plunder warrior with Vampiric 2, and Perish draws a card. So in the top end, you do get a lot more card draw too, as you saw. Wisdom and Plunder is now accessible to you, and they're very loopable in the sense that they kind of revive each other. Or not really revive each other, but the one comes back next to the other one, so you can get a lot more draws. We have our second copy of Coven. We are then going to have 2 copies of a card I can never pronounce fully, so I just call it all the archetypes. It is the Grim Putrid Castle Crimson Grim, or
putrid card.
It is actually Grim Ghosts of Castle Crimson. It is Bloodborne 10 to send the top 5 of your deck to discard for cost. Then you deal 1 damage to all opposing warlords for each undead warrior in your discard pile with a different name. And if this is in your discard pile, you can eradicate it and pay 5 Bloodborne. Then if you do, conscript up to 2 Grim from your hand, or revive up to 2 Vampire Warriors from your discard pile. Both effects are once per turn. You think of it as a Gifts from the Grave that just does more damage, but you get half the mills, but you're also paying half the life. So, it has its benefits to put into the deck. We have Invitation to the Masquerade. This is 25 consume to target a player. Then if you do, search their deck for up to 5 warriors with different names and conscript them onto your side of the field. Then you can eradicate this from your discard pile and pay 25 Bloodborne. Then if you do, all players sacrifice all face-up unifieds and fortifieds on their respective sides of the field. Both effects are once per turn. So this is good for either taking all your opponent's good warriors or finding your deck for all of your good warriors. And it's not specific to an archetype either, so you could just find 5 undead, 5 warriors that you want, like the Rosaline, Baby, Teddy. Oh yes, you can't conscript Rosaline. Sorry, correcting myself here. Can't conscript Rosaline because she can only be conscripted by her card effect. And then we have Magic Void Hollow. It's a staple in competitive play for constructed. Unified cards and their effects cannot be activated for the remainder of the turn. You draw one, and then you target one face up on the field and destroy it, and you can only activate this once per turn. This is a good silence effect that will stifle a opponent's turn. We have what some people refer to as Surgical Extraction or just Twilight Gardens. When a warrior would be conscripted or a Unify is activated, you negate the activation of it or the conscription, and if you do, destroy that card. Then all opponents must eradicate all copies of the destroyed card from their hand, deck, and discard pile, and you deal 3 damage for each copy that was eradicated by this effect. This is a once per game. And then the last Crimson Vial that we have currently accessible to us is the Crimson Vial type Omega. Locked to Rosaline like the other ones are, is Bloodborne 10 to sacrifice up to 5 warriors on your side of the field. And if you do, conscript X to your side of the field from your hand, where X is the number of the warrior, half the numbers of warriors sacrificed. So if you have 5, you sacrifice it, you get to bring out 3 guys because it's rounded up. And if it's in your discard pile, it kind of has a super version of the other ones, where this one will deal X damage to all opponents versus 1, where X is the different types of Crimson Vials you have in your discard pile with different names. So the other ones only deal 1 damage. This, with all vials in the discard pile, will deal 3 damage. And those are the top end pieces I would say you could include. As like a pretty much mandatory ones, I would say the Sister, the Coven, Baby, and Teddy are the ones I would say like you absolutely need to play. And then the rest of them are like quality of life / like consistency pieces. Where like, for example, this little pile up in the top row. These are like to help complete your engine in a way, but also give you a slightly stronger warrior package where this is more payoff and like top end strength, right? But if you're just getting into the game, the Renowns are a little more accessible to get. And he was reprinted 2 times, and then this is in Mom. So a lot of these are all in Mom. So believe it or not, if you just buy a bunch of Mom, you're more likely to get the deck built together. And new Baby Doom was reprinted again in Legacy Packs. So you can get them in Legacy Packs, or you open EOR, you can get a 2nd edition of them, or if you're lucky enough, in a battle deck, you can get the 1st edition of them. So if you have all 3 copies of this card, please let me know, because that's really cool. But Legacy Packs are like $10 a pop, $20 a pop, and guaranteed Exalted and a Renown in it, so really good. Just 2 Renowns. Whoa, 2 Renowns, sorry, it's a voice in my head just told me there's 2 Renowns. So having those, it's just a good bang for your buck for $20. But yeah, these are the upgrades from the pub version to the constructed version.
And don't forget to use code TSW10 at checkout on swashbuckler.com for 10% off your singles orders.